empire. Not as friends, as another worker species like the others. The room was quiet for Alon. The second week of talks began with Overseer Thex-Ka showing the humans a new part of the confluence. He led them through corridors filled with screens that showed different planets and star systems. Each screen had information about populations, resources, and production numbers. "These are the worlds that benefit from hegemony guidance," said Thex-Ka proudly. 47 systems with over 200 billion beings living in peace and order. Captain Morrison studied the screens carefully. Every planet showed the same pattern: Zeridians in control positions while other species did the actual work. Mining, farming, building, cleaning. The numbers were impressive, but something felt wrong about the whole display. Dr. Grant stopped at a screen showing a water world. "Is this the Murathi home planet?" "It was," replied Thex-Ka. "Now it is Murathi Production World 7. They are much more efficient now that we have organized their society properly." Amy Foster translated the alien text under the images. Her face went pale as she read. "Captain, this says the original Murathi population was 8 billion. Current population is 2 billion. Thex-Ka seemed unconcerned. Yes, some adjustment was necessary. The inefficient individuals were relocated to other worlds where they could contribute better. Now all Murathi work at maximum productivity." Morrison felt sick, but kept his face calm. "What happened to the 6 billion who were relocated?" "They found new purposes," said Thex-Ka simply. "The hegemony does not waste resources." Commander Burke stepped closer to Morrison. His hand moved slightly toward his hidden weapon. Morrison shook his head just enough to stop him. They were deep in enemy territory now, surrounded by thousands of aliens. Violence would only get them killed. They continued the tour, but Morrison's mind was racing. Everything they saw confirmed his worst fears. The hegemony was not a peaceful alliance. It was an empire built on conquest and slavery. And now they wanted to add humanity to their collection. That afternoon, the formal negotiations resumed in the Crystal Chamber. Thex-Ka sat across from Morrison with several other Zeridian officials. The other species were present too, but they only spoke when asked direct questions. "We have learned much about your species," began Thex-Ka. "Humans have great potential. Your technology is primitive but shows creativity. Your social structures are chaotic but produce interesting innovations. With proper guidance, humanity could become very valuable to the hegemony." Morrison chose his words carefully. "We appreciate your interest in humanity. What kind of relationship are you proposing?" Thex-Ka leaned forward. His crystal skin seemed to glow brighter. "We propose that Earth join the hegemony as a protected species. We would provide advanced technology, eliminate human conflicts, and organize your society for maximum efficiency. In return, humanity would contribute its unique skills to our greater civilization." "What would that mean exactly?" asked Dr. Grant. Another Zeridian official answered. "Human creativity would be channeled into useful projects. Your tendency toward conflict would be corrected through behavior modification. Your population would be stabilized at optimal levels for your assigned tasks." Amy Foster spoke up without thinking. "You mean you would control how many humans could be born?" "Population management is essential for a stable society," replied Thex-Ka. "Look at your own world. Too many humans competing for resources, fighting over territory, polluting your environment. We would solve all these problems." Morrison felt anger building in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "And if humanity prefers to solve these problems ourselves?" The room became very quiet. The other species looked at the floor or walls, anywhere but at the humans. Thex-Ka's silver eyes seemed to grow colder. "That would be unfortunate," said Thex-Ka slowly. "Primitive species often resist guidance at first, but the alternative to joining the hegemony is usually much worse for everyone involved." "What?" Do you mean by worse? Asked Commander Burke. ThemselvesHFY stood up from his chair. He walked to one of the wall screens and touched it. The image changed to show a dead planet. The surface was black and cracked. No oceans, no atmosphere, no life. This was the homeworld of a species called the Ankari. They were very much like humans. Creative, emotional, stubborn. They refused our guidance repeatedly. Eventually, they became a threat to the stability of our region. We were forced to take defensive action. Morrison stared at the dead world. You destroyed an entire planet? We eliminated a dangerous species before they could spread their chaos to other worlds, said ThemselvesHFY. It was regrettable but necessary. The Ankari left us no choice. Dr. Grant was looking at the data on the screen. This says their population was 12 billion. You killed 12 billion beings because they would not submit to your rule. We brought peace to their region of space, replied another Zeridian official. The other species there are much happier now. Morrison stood up slowly. Every person in the room was watching him. He could feel the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. But he thought about Earth's history, about every war fought for freedom, about every person who died rather than live as a slave. I need to discuss this with my crew, Morrison said finally. This is a big decision for our species. ThemselvesHFY nodded. Of course, but do not take too long. The hegemony has many responsibilities. We cannot wait forever for primitive species to accept obvious benefits. The humans returned to their ship in silence. As soon as the airlock closed behind them, Morrison called an emergency meeting. The senior crew gathered in the conference room along with several other officers. They want us to become their slaves, Morrison said without introduction, and if we refuse, they will destroy Earth like they destroyed the Ankari homeworld. Pete Williams slammed his fist on the table. 12 billion people. They killed 12 billion people for wanting to stay free. Amy Foster was still shaking. I recorded everything. We have proof of what they are. But who can we tell? Who would believe us? Earth needs to know, said Commander Burke. We have to get this information home. Dr. Grant looked sick. How can we warn Earth? Even if we left right now, it would take months to get home, and I think they would stop us from leaving. Morrison was quiet for a moment, thinking hard. Amy, can you send a message to Earth from here? Not directly, she replied, but there is an emergency beacon system, short-burst transmission. It would take weeks to reach Earth, but it would get there. Do it, ordered Morrison. Send everything, the recordings, the population data, all of it. Tell Earth what we found here. Amy nodded and headed for the communications station. But as she reached for the controls, alarms started going off throughout the ship. Red lights flashed as the ship's computer announced a problem. Captain, called Pete Williams from his engineering station. They are jamming our communications. All. Transmissions are being blocked. On the main screen, Overseer ThemselvesHFY appeared. He was no longer trying to look friendly. Captain Morrison, we noticed you were attempting to send messages to your homeworld. This is not acceptable behavior during negotiations. Morrison stepped in front of the screen. We have the right to communicate with our own people. You have the rights we choose to give you, replied ThemselvesHFY coldly. No species leaves the confluence without our permission. This ensures productive negotiations without outside interference. The screen went dark. Morrison turned to his crew. Everyone was looking at him, waiting for orders. He thought about the dead planet they had been shown, about the billions of aliens working as slaves throughout hegemony space, about Earth and all the free humans who had no idea what was coming for them. They have just made a very big mistake, Morrison said quietly. They think they can scare us into submission by showing us a dead world. But humans do not react to threats the way they expect. Commander Burke smiled grimly. What are your orders, Captain? We get our message to Earth, no matter what it costs, Morrison replied, and we start planning for war. Over the next few days, the humans pretended to consider the hegemony's offer while secretly preparing for conflict. Pete Williams and his engineers studied every system on the alien station they could access. Amy Foster worked on breaking through the communications jamming. Dr. Grant tried to make contact with aliens from the other species. It was Dr. Grant who made the first breakthrough. She managed to corner Zeke-99, the Cathara engineer, in a maintenance area where there were no Zeridian monitors. "Please," she whispered urgently, "we need to know the truth about the hegemony. Are your people happy here?" The insect alien looked around nervously with all four eyes. "Cathara were builders once. We made beautiful cities on 17 worlds. Now we build only what Zeridians command. Our art is forbidden. Our history is erased. We are not happy, but happiness is irrelevant." For worker species, "What happened to your people who resisted?" Zik-99's golden eyes dimmed. "Cathara resistance ended 300 years ago. Last free Cathara died fighting hegemony ships above our homeworld. Now only workers remain." Dr. Grant felt tears in her eyes. "Why are you telling me this? You could be punished." "Because humans remind us of what we used to be," replied Zeke-99. "Free, proud, stupid enough to fight even when we cannot win. Maybe humans will be smarter. Maybe humans will run." "We cannot run," said Dr. Grant. "Our world is not." Captain Morrison looked directly into Thex-Ka's silver eyes. The crystal chamber was completely silent. Every alien in the room waited for humanity's answer. Morrison thought about Earth, about freedom, about the choice between slavery and death. "Humanity's answer is no," Morrison said clearly. "We will not join your empire. We will not become your slaves. We choose to remain free." The silence stretched for several seconds. Then Thex-Ka began to glow brighter. His crystal skin pulsed with angry light. The other Zeridian officials made harsh sounds that the translation system could not interpret. "You choose poorly," said Thex-Ka, his musical voice now cold as space. "Your species lacks wisdom. You will learn the price of defying the hegemony." Morrison did not back down. "The price of freedom has always been high. Humans have paid it before." Thex-Ka stepped closer. "Your primitive world cannot resist us. We have conquered hundreds of species across thousands of years. Your brief existence ends now." "Maybe," replied Morrison, "but we will make you remember us." Thex-Ka raised his hand. Suddenly, alarms started screaming throughout the station. Bright lights flashed as automated voices announced lockdown procedures in multiple alien languages. "Seize them," ordered Thex-Ka. Armed Zeridian guards moved toward the humans. But Commander Burke was ready. He pulled out his hidden weapon and fired at the nearest guard. The energy blast knocked the alien backward into a crystal wall. "Run!" shouted Morrison. The humans scattered toward different exits. Morrison grabbed Dr. Grant and ran toward the main corridor, while Burke and Amy Foster went another direction. Behind them, more alarms joined the chaos as security forces throughout the station responded to the emergency. Morrison and Dr. Grant ran through twisting corridors filled with confused aliens. Most of the worker species pressed against walls to let them pass, but Zeridian guards appeared at every intersection. Morrison used his emergency communicator to contact the ship. "Pete, we need immediate extraction. They are trying to capture us." "Already on it, Captain," came Williams's voice. "I have been monitoring the situation. The docking clamps are locked, but I am working on it." They reached the docking bay to find Pete Williams and several crew members in a firefight with station security. The engineer had somehow freed their ship from the docking clamps, but guards were blocking the entrance to the airlock. Morrison and Dr. Grant joined the battle. The humans had only light weapons, but they used the cover of cargo containers and support beams to even the odds. The aliens seemed confused by human tactics. They expected surrender or panic, not organized resistance. "Where are Burke and Amy?" shouted Dr. Grant over the sound of energy weapons. Different route, replied Morrison, firing at a guard. They will find another way. But as minutes passed with no sign of the other two humans, Morrison realized they might not make it out together. The station's defenses were activating. Heavy weapons were being brought into the docking bay. "Captain," called Pete Williams from the ship's ramp, "we have to leave now or we never will." Morrison made the hardest decision of his life. "All crew aboard. We launch immediately." "What about Commander Burke and Amy?" "They knew the risks," Morrison said, his voice heavy with pain. "Our mission now is to warn Earth." The UES Harmony pulled away from the confluence just as massive energy cannons began firing. The ship's shields flared and sparked under the assault. Pete Williams pushed, the engines beyond their safe limits racing toward open space. "Captain," called the navigation officer, "Hegemony ships are moving to intercept us. At least 20 vessels." Morrison could see them on the screen. Each ship was 3 times larger than the Harmony. Their weapons could destroy his vessel with a single shot. But he also saw something else that gave him hope. "They are not trying to destroy us immediately," he observed. "They want to capture us alive," Dr. Grant understood. "Because we are the only humans they have ever seen. They want to study us." "That gives us an advantage," said Morrison. "Pete, set course for the asteroid belt. If they want us alive, they cannot use their biggest weapons." The chase began. The UES Harmony raced through space with the Hegemony fleet close behind. The alien ships were faster, but Morrison had spent years navigating dangerous space routes. He knew how to use obstacles and terrain to slow down larger vessels. They reached the asteroid belt, with the enemy ships gaining rapidly. Morrison ordered his crew to prepare for evasive maneuvers among the floating rocks. What followed was a deadly game of cat and mouse in the most dangerous region of the system. "Use the asteroids as cover," Morrison commanded. "Make them work for every shot." The Hegemony ships struggled to follow the small human vessel through the maze of spinning rocks. Their massive size worked against them in the tight spaces. Several times, alien ships had to break off pursuit to avoid collisions, but the aliens adapted quickly. They began using tractor beams to move asteroids out of their path. Energy weapons carved new routes through the rock field. Slowly but steadily, they closed the distance to their prey. "Captain, our shields are failing," reported the tactical officer. "We cannot take many more hits." Morrison studied the tactical display. The largest Hegemony ship was almost within weapons range. In minutes, they would be captured or destroyed. Then he saw something that changed everything. "There," he pointed at the screen. "That asteroid has metal ore veins running through it. Pete, can you get us close to it?" "Close enough to crash, yes. Close enough to be safe, probably not." "Do it." The Harmony dove toward the massive asteroid. Hegemony ships followed, thinking the humans were trying to hide behind the rock. But Morrison had a different plan. "Fire everything we have at those metal veins," he ordered. The ship's weapons, designed for clearing space debris, struck the asteroid's weak points. Cracks spread through the rock like lightning. The asteroid began to break apart, creating a cloud of deadly fragments. The leading Hegemony ship could not stop in time. It plowed into the debris field at high speed. Chunks of rock hammered its shields and hull. Explosions erupted across its surface as the debris overwhelmed its defenses. "Direct hit on the lead ship," reported the tactical officer. "It is heavily damaged and falling behind." But more ships were coming. Morrison realized they could not run forever. The Harmony was fast, but not fast enough. Eventually, the Hegemony would corner them. "Captain," called Amy Foster's voice over the communications system. Morrison's heart jumped. "Amy, where are you?" "Commander Burke and I escaped in a maintenance pod. We are hiding in the asteroid field about 20 kilometers from your position." "But, Captain, we managed to do something before we escaped." "What?" "We planted explosives in the station's main computer core. When they detonate, it will knock out communications for the entire Hegemony fleet." You will have a small window to send your message to Earth. Morrison felt hope surge through him. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes before they repair the damage. But Captain, there is something else. We captured one of their small ships. If we can study it, we might learn how their technology works. Burke's voice joined the conversation. The ship is damaged but flyable. We can rendezvous with you if you can shake your pursuit for a few minutes. Morrison looked at the tactical display. 3 hegemony ships were still chasing them, but they were spread out across several thousand kilometers. If he could deal with them one at a time. Pete, can you rig our cargo bay to explosively decompress? Sure, but why would we want to do that? Because we are going to ram one of those ships. The bridge crew stared at him. Dr. Grant spoke first. Captain, ramming a ship that size would destroy us too. Not if we do it right, Morrison replied. We evacuate the cargo bay, fill it with explosive materials, then detonate it inside their ship. The explosion pushes us away while tearing them apart from inside. It was a desperate plan, but desperate times called for desperate measures. The crew worked frantically to prepare their improvised weapon. They loaded the cargo bay with everything that could explode, from fuel cells to emergency batteries. The nearest hegemony ship was closing fast. It was massive and powerful, but Morrison noticed its design was built for overwhelming firepower rather than maneuverability. All hegemony ships seemed to follow the same pattern. They were used to fighting enemies who would either surrender quickly or die quickly. Incoming transmission from the hegemony ship, reported the communications officer. Put it through. A Zeridian commander appeared on screen. His crystal skin was dark with anger. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Your resistance only delays the inevitable. Tell me something, Morrison replied. How many species have you conquered? Hundreds. Your species will be added to that list. And how many of those species fought back like humans? The alien was quiet for a moment. None were foolish enough to resist once they understood their situation. Morrison smiled. Then you have never fought humans before. You have no idea what you are dealing with. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All hands, prepare for ramming speed. The UES Harmony accelerated directly toward the hegemony ship. The aliens seemed confused by the suicidal attack. Their weapons fired, but they were clearly trying not to destroy the human vessel. They still wanted prisoners. At the last second, Morrison ordered the cargo bay doors opened. The makeshift bomb shot out into space and struck the hegemony ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a massive explosion tore. The damaged UES Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as Pete Williams fought to keep the ship's failing systems online. They had made the journey home in record time, pushing their engines far beyond safe limits. Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Morrison. Aboard the UES Harmony, Morrison spoke into his communicator. We are declaring a Priority Alpha emergency. Repeat, Priority Alpha. Hostile alien fleet en route to Earth. The response came back immediately. UES Harmony, this is Admiral Susan. Clark at Defense Command. Confirm your emergency status. Are you under attack? Not currently under attack, but a massive enemy fleet is following us home. Admiral, we need to talk immediately. The diplomatic mission failed. We are at war. Within hours, Morrison and his surviving crew were aboard the Earth Defense Station orbiting high above the planet. The station buzzed with activity as military officers, scientists, and government officials tried to understand the threat facing humanity. Admiral Clark was a tall woman in her 50s who had commanded Earth's small defense fleet for over a decade. She listened without interruption as Morrison described everything they had learned about the hegemony. Let me understand this correctly, Clark said when he finished. An alien empire that controls hundreds of worlds is sending a fleet to conquer Earth. They have technology centuries ahead of ours, and they will be here in approximately 2 weeks. That is correct, Admiral, Morrison replied. But we brought back intelligence that might help. Commander Burke and Dr. Foster captured a hegemony scout ship. Our engineers are studying it now. Clark nodded grimly. Show me what we are facing. Morrison activated the holographic display in the center of the briefing room. Three-dimensional. Images showed the massive ships of the hegemony fleet. Each vessel dwarfed Earth's largest warships. Their main battle cruisers are over 2 kilometers long, Morrison explained. They carry enough firepower to destroy a city with a single shot. The fleet heading for Earth contains at least 40 such ships plus hundreds of smaller vessels. Dr. Carl Newman, Earth's top physicist, studied the images with growing alarm. Their energy weapons are based on focused plasma streams. Our current armor and shields cannot stop weapons of this magnitude. What about their weaknesses? Asked Colonel Ben Hayes, Earth's chief military strategist. Every enemy has weaknesses. Commander Burke stepped forward. Their technology is powerful but standardized. Every ship follows the same design patterns. They rely on overwhelming firepower rather than tactics or maneuverability. They have never fought an enemy that used unconventional strategies. Unconventional like what? Clark asked. Morrison smiled grimly. Like ramming attacks with explosive cargo bays, like using asteroids as weapons, like refusing to surrender even when facing certain death. Admiral, the hegemony has conquered hundreds of species, but they have never fought humans. Over the next week, Earth transformed into a fortress world. Every shipyard worked around the clock to build new warships. Factories that once made cars and computers now produced weapons and armor. The captured alien technology was studied and adapted for human use. Dr. Newman made the first breakthrough with their energy weapons. We cannot match their plasma cannons, he told the military council. But we do not need to. Our nuclear weapons are actually more effective against their shield technology than their own energy weapons. How is that possible? Asked Admiral Clark. Their shields are designed to disperse energy attacks over a wide area, Newman explained. But nuclear weapons release massive amounts of matter and radiation at close range. Their shields cannot handle that kind of localized destruction. Colonel Hayes developed new tactics based on human military history. We cannot meet them in open battle, he said. But we can use hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, and terrain advantages. Every military academy teaches that superior numbers can be defeated by superior strategy. The shipyards launched new classes of warships designed specifically for fighting. The hegemony, fast attack ships that could launch nuclear missiles and escape before return fire. Heavily armored destroyers that could ram enemy vessels. Even converted cargo ships loaded with explosives and remote pilots. But the most important discovery came from Amy Foster and the linguistics team. They had decoded more of the hegemony's communications and learned something crucial. The hegemony is not just one species controlling others, Amy reported to Admiral Clark. It is a political system based on fear and oppression. The subject species hate their masters but are too afraid to rebel. If we can show them that the hegemony can be defeated, they might turn against their oppressors. How do we do that? Clark asked. By winning, Morrison said simply. By proving that humans will not surrender. By showing every enslaved species in the galaxy that freedom is possible. On the morning that long-range sensors detected the approaching hegemony fleet, Admiral Clark addressed the entire human species through worldwide broadcasts. Citizens of Earth, she began. Today we face the greatest threat in human history. An alien empire seeks to enslave our world and our people. They believe we will surrender when we see their superior numbers and technology. They are wrong. Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. Humanity has never bowed to tyrants. We have fought for freedom on every continent and in every age. Today we carry that fight to the stars. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. We have something our enemies do not understand, the unbreakable human spirit. The first battle began when the hegemony fleet entered the outer solar system. Overseer Thex Ka led the invasion force personally, determined to make humanity pay for their resistance. He expected a quick victory followed by the systematic enslavement of the human species. Instead, he found a prepared and defiant enemy. The opening shots came from nuclear mines hidden throughout the asteroid belt. As hegemony ships passed through what seemed like empty space, massive explosions erupted around them. Several smaller vessels were destroyed immediately, while larger ships suffered heavy damage to their shields and hulls. "Impossible," ThemselvesHFY said as he watched the tactical display. "How did they place weapons throughout our approach route?" His tactical officer was equally confused. "The mines were hidden inside asteroids. They used their own system's debris against us." The hegemony fleet regrouped and continued toward Earth, but now they moved cautiously. Every asteroid, every piece of space debris could be hiding another trap. Their advance slowed to a crawl as they scanned everything in their path. That was when the human fleet struck. Fast attack ships burst from hiding places behind moons and planets. They fired nuclear missiles at point-blank range, then disappeared into the void before the hegemony could respond. The aliens found themselves fighting shadows, unable to pin down an enemy that refused to engage in traditional battle. "These humans fight like cowards," complained one of ThemselvesHFY's commanders. "They will not face us in honorable combat." "Honor is a luxury for those who expect to survive the battle," ThemselvesHFY replied coldly. "Adapt our tactics. Use pursuit ships to track down their raiders." But every time the hegemony adapted, the humans changed their strategy. When pursuit ships were sent after raiders, Earth's heavy destroyers ambushed the pursuers. When the aliens tried to protect their flanks, converted cargo ships rammed their formations with explosive payloads. The most shocking moment came when Captain Jake Morrison led a suicide mission against the hegemony flagship, the rebuilt UES Harmony, now loaded. With every nuclear weapon they could carry, charged directly at ThemselvesHFY's massive command ship. "Human vessel, surrender immediately," ThemselvesHFY commanded over the communications link. "Your attack is hopeless." Morrison's face appeared on the screen. His ship was taking heavy fire and would be destroyed in minutes. But his expression was calm and determined. "Overseer, you still do not understand humans. We do not surrender, we do not submit, and we do not forget." The Harmony exploded just as it reached the hegemony flagship. The nuclear detonation tore through the alien ship's shields and ripped huge sections from its hull. ThemselvesHFY survived, but his ship was crippled and dozens of his crew were dead. For the first time in his long life, the Overseer felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The battle raged for 3 days around Earth's orbital space. Human losses were heavy, but so were the hegemonies. More importantly, news of the fighting was spreading throughout their empire. For the first time in centuries, a subject species was not only resisting, but actually winning battles against their masters. On the Cathara homeworld, an engineer named Zik-99 heard the reports and began planning. On Marathi production facilities, workers whispered about the humans who would rather die than serve. Throughout hegemony space, the enslaved species began to remember what freedom meant. Admiral Clark, commanding the battle from her damaged flagship, received reports that changed everything. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we are receiving transmissions from inside hegemony space. Multiple species are beginning to rebel against their masters. The Cathara have seized control of The final battle for Earth began at dawn on the 4th day. Overseer ThemselvesHFY's damaged fleet regrouped beyond the moon for one last assault on humanity's homeworld. His crystal skin was cracked from the explosion that destroyed his flagship's bridge, and his silver eyes burned with hatred for the species that dared resist him. "All ships, prepare for planetary bombardment," ThemselvesHFY commanded from his new command vessel. "If humans will not serve the hegemony, they will join the Ankari in extinction." But as the alien fleet moved toward Earth, something unexpected happened. Ships throughout the hegemony began reporting massive rebellions on their home worlds. The Cathara had not only seized industrial planets, but were now building weapons of their own design. The Marathi had flooded 3 Zeridian colonies, reclaiming their ancient water worlds. Most shocking of all, the energy beings called Vorthak had simply vanished from their assigned duties, leaving hegemony installations powerless across dozens of systems. Admiral Susan Clark received these reports aboard her battered command ship as it limped back toward Earth. Her fleet was reduced to less than 30 functional vessels. But the news from across the galaxy filled her with hope. "The Empire is collapsing," she told her remaining commanders over the communications link. "Every species they enslaved is rising up at once. Humanity gave them something they had lost, the courage to fight for freedom." Lieutenant Maria Santos, one of Earth's best fighter pilots, spoke from her damaged cockpit. "Admiral, we are outnumbered. 10-1 in this final battle. How do we stop them from destroying our world?" Clark looked at the tactical display showing Thexka's approaching fleet. The alien ships were battered but still formidable. They had enough firepower to turn Earth's surface into molten glass, but humanity had one advantage their enemies could never understand. "We do not fight alone anymore," Clark replied. "Every enslaved being in the galaxy is watching this battle. If we can defeat the hegemony here, their empire dies forever. We fight not just for Earth, but for freedom itself." As the human fleet prepared for their desperate last stand, emergency transmissions began arriving from across the solar system. Ships were approaching Earth from multiple directions, but they were not hegemony reinforcements. "Admiral," called the communications officer with excitement in his voice, "we have friendly contacts incoming. Multiple species, multiple fleets. They are broadcasting alliance signals." On the main screen appeared the insectoid face of Zeke 99, the Cathara engineer who had helped Dr. Grant escape the Confluent Station months earlier. Behind him, other alien faces appeared. Marathi in their water suits, Vorthak energy beings, and dozens of species Clark had never seen before. "Humans of Earth," Zeke 99 spoke in his clicking voice. "The Kithara thank you for showing us that. Resistance is possible. We bring ships and weapons to fight alongside you. Today, we all choose freedom." The tide of battle shifted dramatically as rebel fleets emerged from hiding throughout the solar system. Ships that had been secretly built in captured hegemony shipyards. Weapons that combined alien technology with human ingenuity. Most importantly, warriors who had learned from humanity that death was preferable to slavery. Thexka watched in disbelief as his empire crumbled around him. "Impossible," he whispered as the tactical display showed rebel fleets converging from all directions. "The subject species are loyal. We have controlled them for centuries." "Perhaps," said his remaining tactical officer, "we never truly controlled them. We only made them afraid, and humans taught them that fear can be overcome." The final battle became a three-way fight as loyalist hegemony forces, human defenders, and rebel fleets clashed in the space around Earth. But the outcome was never in doubt. Species that had been enslaved for generations fought with the fury of the newly freed. They had seen humanity stand against impossible odds and refused to surrender. Now, they carried that same spirit into battle. Captain Tony Reed, commanding the rebuilt UES Defiance, led a mixed squadron of human and Kithara ships against the hegemony's remaining heavy cruisers. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when faced with tactics they could not predict and enemies who would not retreat. "Target their command systems," Reed ordered, as his ships dove through a formation of enemy vessels. "The hegemony cannot adapt if their commanders cannot communicate." The combined assault overwhelmed the alien fleet's defenses. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought by the very species they had enslaved. One by one, hegemony vessels either surrendered or were destroyed. Thexka's final command ship found itself surrounded and alone. His empire was gone, his fleet was scattered, and his 1,000-year reign of terror was ending. Through the smoke and debris of battle, he watched human and rebel ships closing in on his position. Admiral Clark's voice came across all frequencies. Overseer Thex Ka, this is Admiral Susan Clark of the Earth Defense Force. You are surrounded and defeated. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Thex Ka laughed bitterly. Laws of war? We are the hegemony. We make the laws. We decide who lives and who dies. Not anymore, replied a familiar voice. On his command screen, Thex Ka saw Captain Jake Morrison, the human he thought he had killed. In the suicide attack was alive, commanding a new ship built from salvaged hegemony technology. You survived, Thex Ka said with surprise. Humans are harder to kill than you think, Morrison replied. Just like freedom is harder to destroy than you believed. Your empire is finished, Thex Ka. Every world you conquered is free. Every species you enslaved has risen up. The age of the hegemony is over. Thex Ka stared at the human who had started the rebellion that destroyed his civilization. What gave you the right to interfere with the natural order? The strong rule the weak. That is the way of the universe. Morrison's expression hardened. The way of the universe is what we make it, and we choose freedom over slavery, courage over fear, hope over despair. That is humanity's gift to the galaxy. The Overseer's ship was boarded by a joint force of humans and rebels. Thex Ka was taken prisoner, the last free Zeridian in a galaxy that no longer feared his species. As he was led away in restraints, he asked Morrison one final question. What will you do now? Will you become the new rulers? Will humanity build its own empire? Morrison shook his head. We will do what humans have always done. We will explore. We will learn. We will help others find their own path to freedom. The galaxy does not need another empire. It needs friends. In the months that followed, the former hegemony worlds formed a new alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. The Cathara returned to building beautiful cities. The Morathi restored their flooded worlds to their natural glory. The Vorthak became willing partners rather than enslaved power sources. Earth became the center of this new galactic community, not as rulers, but as the example that sparked the revolution. Human values of freedom, individual rights, and self-determination spread to every corner of known space. Dr. Lisa Grant, now Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Alliance, stood in the council chambers on the rebuilt Confluence Station, where once Overseer Thex Ka had demanded submission. Now representatives from hundreds of free worlds gathered to discuss trade, exploration, and mutual defense. It is hard to believe, she said to Morrison, who served as Earth's military liaison. 3 years ago, we came here hoping to make friends with aliens. Instead, we started a galactic war. Morrison nodded as he watched Cathara engineers working alongside human technicians to improve the station's systems. We did not start the war. We finished it. The hegemony declared war on freedom itself the day they conquered their first world. We just reminded the galaxy what it meant to fight back. Amy Foster, now head of interspecies communications, joined them at the observation deck. The former slave worlds are calling it the human war. Not because humans fought it alone, but because humans showed everyone else it could be fought. Through the transparent walls, they could see construction ships building humanity's first generation of interstellar colonies. These were not military outposts, but peaceful settlements where humans and aliens worked together to build new worlds. The ships carried a simple message inscribed on their hulls in dozens of languages. Freedom is not given. It is taken by those brave enough to fight for it. Pete Williams, now chief engineer of the Alliance fleet, supervised the construction of new exploration vessels designed to seek out other enslaved species throughout the galaxy. Each ship carried the same basic mission that had brought the UES Harmony to the Centauri system: make contact, offer friendship, and if necessary, offer help in fighting for freedom. Commander Ryan Burke, promoted to admiral after the war, established training programs where humans taught alien species the tactics that had defeated the hegemony, not to build new armies, but to ensure that no species would ever again be helpless against conquest. As the years passed, the story of humanity's first contact became legend throughout the galaxy. It was the tale of a small species from a distant world who went seeking peace, but found war instead, who faced an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds and refused to surrender, who inspired an entire galaxy to remember what freedom meant. But perhaps the most important part of the story was what happened after the victory. When offered the chance to rule the galaxy, Huma,